Hey guys, Amarathi here, and I am back with another build guide. 7.10 has just dropped, which has included a whole heap of changes to how the mechanics work in the game, from the resistances to a heap of different overhauls of skills and trees and stuff like that. So I'm gonna take a crack at the Firebrand Flame Reave combo that a few people have looked at so far. This is super fun. I really liked Flame Reave as an ability, and it struggled a little bit for a long time, especially compared to Shadow Strike, because the Spellblade tree didn't really do much to support it. But with the big overhaul of the Spellblade passive tree and Flame Reave itself, and the new ability Firebrand, we've got a super powerful build on our hands. In fact, we've got two super powerful builds, so I'm going to run you through them. Um, it's essentially the same build, but it's whether or not you choose to go fire or convert it into lightning. With the changes to how shock works, the lightning is a very attractive proposition if you want to go a bit more down the a leech and huge crit path, and then fire is probably a little bit better in terms of just being a bit more tanky, because you go for a one-hander instead, so that you get the shield, and it's just a bit faster, so more suited to the arena environment, where you need those kind of quick movements and reflexes. So anyway, I've got the fire build set up, and I think it should be fairly straightforward, so I'll run through this and then I'll show you where the differences are in the lightning build. Just a quick overview though before I get started on how the build works. So if you're just coming back to the game or something like that and want to test it, so here's Firebrand, the new ability. It's a zero cost ability, and it adds like a stacking buff each time you hit an enemy with it. And that buff, I've got it up to 6 there, will add additional melee, fire melee, to your class. And you can also use this to cast like a more expensive ability that's not Firebrand, and consume all those stacks and do a whole heap of extra damage. And that synergizes really well with one of the new passives that does a very similar thing, blade weaving in the Spellblade tree. So that's up here. Basically just using 10 abilities that cost less than 10 mana, will stack it up, and you can then use an ability that costs more than 10 mana to consume it. Both of these things are multiplicative with each other, and the Flame Reave tree has now got a whole bunch of multipliers in it as well, so really just stack up that damage. So I've seen about 1.4 mil crits on the dummy so far, and you could definitely go higher if that's the way you want to go. Alright, so here's the fire version of the build. So we're going to run in Flame Blast, Enchant Weapon, Flame Reave, Teleport, and Flame Ward. It'll be exactly the same for the lightning version. You just need to move a few points around. So for Firebrand, you want to go 5 points in Pyro Shielding, 3 points in Fading Flame, 2 points in Wildfire, 5 points in Insulation, 1 point in Incineration, so that's where you're going to get all the big stacks from, 1 point in Illuminating Fire, so that'll guarantee a critical strike with your next ability, and 3 points in Fulmination. If you are to go the lightning version, you want to start looking at taking stacks out of Installation, putting them into Galvanize, and probably a few more stacks out of Pyro Shielding, and going down for the Flare option, because that Ignite will then turn into Shock. For Enchant Weapon, fairly straightforward, so we want the concentration for the duration, 5 points in Celerity for the attack speed, 5 points into Molten Shell, 2 points into Fulminate, 4 points into Thundering. For the lightning version, you just take 1 point out of Molten Shell and put it into Thundering, super easy. For Flame Reave, so this is the setup. So the first thing you want to do is go down and get the Dancing Flame, Rhythm of Fire, and Versatility. So this is the core combo out of it. So every kind of fourth hit, and counting your Firebrands here, as you can see, will give you basically a super flame weave that double the distance and width and double the damage as well. So it's kind of like you want at least 3 hits of a Firebrand, and then you throw out the Flame Reave, and you can go all the way up to 10. It's more efficient to go all the way up to 6 or 10 before you cast your Flame Reave for big bosses, but for trash you just go up to 3. Now for the damage component, so we're just stacking our kind of more modifiers. So you want to go 3 points in Arcane Severance, 4 points in Ember Infusion, 2 points in Heat Wave, 2 points in Slash and Burn, 3 points in Scorching Tide. If you do go for Lightning, what you'll do is you'll take these 5 points here and you'll go 1 point into Rending Ire, 3 points into Rending Ire, 1 point into Rolling Thunder, and then 1 more point into Heat Wave. So just taking those 5 points, 3, 1, 1. For teleport, fairly standard setup. I'm really just focusing on getting these buffs out. As you can see there, getting the all the elemental resist. Most importantly is the armor. Armor's like quite a good stat now, because it's similar to Diablo 3, where it's kind of, you've got your armor and then you've got your resistances, so you want to keep armor up as much as possible, and then just keep your resistances capped. But it's a lot easier to cap your resistances, and the duration from time dilation, and just some extra damage out of elemental affinity. Could obviously go for some of the ward stuff if you want to be a bit more defensively minded, but nothing's going to really make or break the build. For Flame Wards, super easy. 3 points into Dilation, 5 points into Infusion, 1 point into Stalwart Defense, 5 points into Barrier, 2 points into Shrewd Shielding, 4 points into Mental Aegis. If you are going Lightning, 1 point out of here and put it into Lightning Ward, just to make sure that you're getting the 250% damage from into Lightning, not Fire. Alright, for passives, once again, this is going to actually change quite a bit between the Fire builds and the Lightning builds, because with the Fire build you don't have as easy access to Leech, so you need to go quite deep into the Sorcerer tree. With the Lightning build, you'll be using the Stormbreaker, so you've got Leech at hand, so you can just go full onto the Spellblade, and I'll show you where to spend those points. So if you start off with a Mage class, you want to go a mix of Scholar and Arcanist. You are looking to make sure that your intelligence hits a even number, like it does there. So, sorry, not even number, a multiple of 10. And the reason why is because of this new passive up here, Prodigy. So you just kind of look at that and say, hey, every 10 intelligence is going to get me another 10 ward per second, which is, it's pretty decent. You don't need to go kind of past that point. So just balance it between your health and your Arcanist. 5 points in Mage Flurry, 10 points in Knowledge of Destruction. I'll go on to the Spellblade tree first. So 8 points into Infused Weapon, 8 points into Arcane Warden. So this is quite strong for getting that ward. 5 points into Arcane Shielding and 5 points into Shattered Aegis. Really, really amazing addition to the Spellblade passives to give a decent amount of damage reduction. 5 points into Essence Duel, 3 points into Prismatic Blade, 4 points into Volker's Razor, 10 points into Blade Weaving, 10 points into Mortal Fortitude, 5 points into Prodigy, and then in the Sorcerer's Tree, 8 points into Mana Shell, 10 points into Wisdom, 2 points into Pyromancer, and 5 points into Lavamancer. Got that nice penetration there, as well as the damage leech, so that's really good. Now, if you are running the Lightning version, you can pretty much strip all of this out and go a little bit more offensively minded. So you'll be looking for Shock. So the first thing you want to do is pick up 5 points in Awe Strike for the extra shock effect and melee damage. Then more into Volker's Razor just for additional damage. And then you can basically balance between Elemental Strikes, getting out shock chance. You can take that all the way up to 10. And if you want to put points into Mana Shell or Wisdom or Elemental Affinity, this will kind of depend on your own personal gear as to what's best. So that's the Lightning alteration to it. For gear, we are looking at the Woven Flesh is basically a staple of this build, and I think it's just a really, really strong item after the changes. because of that critical strike avoidance, and leech, you're going to be hitting so hard, so getting that overkill damage as leech is like, you know, when your Flame Reave goes out, you're basically unkillable until your leech window passes. So you actually want a small as possible increased leech rate, so you probably like the 20%, so you've got like a 2.4 second leech window. If you're not familiar, leech is kind of applied over 3 seconds, so increased leech rate it doubles the speed of that. Actually, now that I'm saying that, that's probably less than 2.4. It's similar to the kind of like mana efficiency, where 100% would basically be half the duration. So a little bit less than that, but just keep your increased leech rate to a minimum, your overkill damage leech its health to a maximum, and then the rest, doesn't really make too much a difference either way. I have Reave for fire with a shield, so just getting that block chance up, and you got some nice all resist on the shield, which is quite good at these stages. The rest of your equipment, like I'll go over it, but this is not set in stone. This is just some pretty garbage gear that I've kind of like put together after the changes to try and drive myself close to the resistance caps. A little bit short on physical. Orion's Eye is still really good, but I doubt many people actually have this. So if you don't have this, don't worry. Just look at your gear, what you got at the moment. Try and get your resistances to as high as possible. Look for armor, look for dodge, look for your health, your usual stuff, just to keep yourself alive. I've got pretty bad dodge, but I use like a dodge belt there. They've nerfed the dodge for me a little bit, so it's nowhere near as good. A new one that's going to come into the mix is applying Frailty on hit. Frailty is like a debuff that stacks up to 3 times and reduces damage taken by 6% per stack. So, a free 18% damage reduction on everything you hit is usually fairly good. If you can get it up there, it will help with your bosses and stuff like that. Another affix that's kind of coming through now is the chance to shred armor on hit, so that bottom one there. So it will go up to 20 stacks. You don't need to worry about going too high on your shred armor, but it will drive your damage up if you can get enough hits out and stuff like that. So that is the build. I'm really liking Bone Clamor Butte as well. It's a pretty nifty item at this stage, with the armor being super valuable. Ward per second kind of coming through as a pretty strong contender in the Spellblade arsenal, because there's a few sources of it now. So it just increases your max health pool, and if you start dipping below, you've got ward coming through to mitigate your hits very quickly. You can also run the Bulwark of Last Abyss if you have a good one. I've got 2 terrible ones with a 10% roll. Even though it does chunk at your health, you have quite an amount of ward on top of it. So with the insane amount of leech, you'll find yourself as soon as that procs and it reduces your health, you can quickly recover it with leech. So it doesn't really affect your survivability too much, but I understand some people might all be against that. And the 80% increased armor is pretty nuts. So with the 80% increased armor, I've gone from 30 to 35, and that will reduce the damage incoming by a lot. I know it's only jumping 5%, but this is multiplicative with all your resources, so your resistances. So if you can get that up, and then with Firebrand in this particular ability, you can see I'm stacking that up. So might look at a variant that just tries to max armor after this and see how that goes as a next build idea. Final things are the idols. So I am running increased melee elemental damage as my idol slots. That goes up to 70%, and then the suffix there is increased armor and mana. Mainly, the armor is amazing at this stage, so I've just got a defensive option. You can also use the suffix I've got down here if you're running lightning, which is increased lightning damage doubled if you have over 300 mana. If you want, so a combination of that and melee elemental damage, For the lightning version of the build, obviously, I don't think there's a fire version. There might be. If there is, go ahead, use that. But look, you're doing enough damage. You don't need to do too much more than what you're currently doing. I often find myself killing very high enemies, either one-shotting or within a couple of Flame Reave combos, which is still fairly quick. For the lightning version of this as well, so you're going to be running Stormbreaker, as I alluded to. The reason why you're running this is because you can get up to 95 melee lightning damage, which is just insane if you compare it to IF Rain. I've got a perfect one here, and that's only 40. So this one will give you 95 as your basis, and then you've got up to 20% lightning damage as leech, so you've got 20% leech, which is pretty crazy, right? And then with that, you can run either Siluran Step or Stormtide or just some regular old boots. Up to you on what you want to do. So the shock is quite good if you want to really focus on that element of it. Silurian Step will get you the largest increase in damage, but what you'll need to do is get set Physical and Void on a lot of your pieces of gear, so you probably need to drop Orion's Eye and try and get that probably on 5 just to counteract that negative 100 physical resistance, but it can be done because you can get up to 95% melee critical strike, and you 100% of the time you're going to be critting on your Flame Reave if you've got 3 stacks of Firebrand, and like these crits are going to go 1.4, 1.5 on a dummy, so you'll see like well above 100k on actual enemies in the game. Comfortably, like even on low 3 stacks, you can still see like 40-50k crits, and then when you see your fire golem or something you need to kill, or your beetle, you just push up to 10 stacks, hit Flame Reave with a chant weapon and flame ward combo right before, and nuke it down. Well, there you go, guys. Won't talk too much about blessings, but I'll show you what I've got. I got this, but this is actually terrible, but unfortunately it was the only choice I had. You want crit multi here, melee crit multi. For this one, chance to chill and hit's pretty good, but there's probably a few better options depending on what's available to you. I won't focus too much on overrunning this one. And then this will just be your resist one. So I've got necrotic and poison, but you might want to go for the 15% all resist as your ideal candidate for that. So there you go, guys. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching. I hope you enjoy this build. I'll leave some gameplay to take us out, but this is definitely a really fun build. You can just do insane damage with it. I've got a mix of gameplay from both the lightning and the fire version running through that you can probably see. No real struggle with any of the bosses. Kill the most bosses kind of within a 30-second time frame. Not the most ideal boss killer, but it just blasts through Monolith of Fate. The lightning versions are much better for Monolith of Fate, while the fire version's much better for Arena, as you can see from some of my gameplay. Thanks, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, I am streaming a little bit on Twitch, so you can find me over there if you want to just check out. I raid, I play during Oceanic time, so if you're from Australia or around the season, or if you're tuning in early morning, depending on where you're from, you might be able to see me on there. Thanks, guys.
Shadow will cover this